Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Officially, we're calling the channel Dynasty Answers. So make sure to use that on all social media platforms. Today, I'm looking at Brandon Aiyuk, who requested a trade. Make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe if you haven't. Let's jump into this news. So we know that this has kind of been brewing for a while. And let's just kind of jump into a little bit of background. Aiyuk is on the fifth-year option of his rookie deal worth $14.124 million fully guaranteed. So he'll play on that if he plays. And then he's a free agent in theory in 2025. Now, the 49ers absolutely do not want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. We'll get into that later as to why. But they're in their Super Bowl window. They need him badly. We're past the NFL draft. We're past most of free agency. They don't have a way really to replace him. And let's go into Aiyuk's career, and it'll kind of show, I think, why we're at an impasse here. Why are we at an impasse? So the reason why we're at an impasse is there's a big difference between Aiyuk's counting stats, which is actually what matters for fantasy football, and his advanced stats. So let's look at the counting stats. So in 2020, as a rookie, he had 60 catches, 748 yards, and 5 touchdowns on 96 targets in 12 games, 5 catches and 62.3 yards a game. And because he scored a couple of rushing touchdowns, he had 15.4 PPR points per game. Then in 2021, he kind of ended up in the doghouse at times. Just had 56 catches over the whole season, 826 yards, 5 touchdowns, 84 targets, 3.3 catches and 48.6 yards a game, 10 PPR points per game. So not usable for fantasy really that year, except during the little stretch it was really feast or famine. It was bad and good. So during the end, he was usable, but not during the beginning. Then in 2022, he was solid. 78 catches, 1,015 yards, 8 touchdowns, 114 targets, 4.6 catches and 59.7 yards a game, 13.4 PPR points per game. And then last year, he was great, but he didn't even gain volume. He just had 75 catches, but he turned them into 1,342 yards, 7 touchdowns on just 105 targets, which is a lot lower than I think people think. Similar catches per game, just 4.7 catches, but he turned them into 83.9 yards, 15.6 PPR points per game. So outside of the doghouse here, he's been between 4.6 and 5 catches a game in 2020, 2022, and 2023. The only difference is that 2023 was his most efficient season. But Aiyuk has never been a league winner for fantasy because he can't be. He can't be on this volume. You cannot be a league winner for fantasy on 105 targets. It's not possible. So that's where we get into a little bit of an issue in Dynasty, a little bit of an issue in fantasy, and then a little bit of an issue in real life. Why is there an issue? The 49ers don't pass that much. You would think they do, but they actually don't. They don't run a lot of plays, and they run the ball a lot. But in 2023, Aiyuk was a critical part of the 49ers offense, and he was very efficient when he did so. He had a 25% target share. That's not the best of the best, but that's good. 18th among wide receivers. 37.9% air yard share. 14th among wide receivers. So we're starting to see what the problem is based on the counting stats and the targets and the catches and the target share and the air yards. The 49ers are right that Brandon Aiyuk should be paid, more in the Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith range than in the Justin Jefferson, elite range. But Brandon Aiyuk delivers something that those players don't deliver. He had 3.18 yards per route run. It's a great measure of wide receivers because it's what do they do? How many yards do they get per route? Third among wide receivers. Very good. Another kind of similar metric, 2.96 yards per team pass attempt. Very efficient. Second among wide receivers. When they did pass, he got a lot of the yards. He was very trustworthy. 96.2% true catch rate. 9th among wide receivers. He had 2.37 fantasy points per target. So he's efficient on a per target basis. 4th among wide receivers. So here's where we have the impasse. Aiyuk is probably saying, well, I would have more counting stats on another team. I'm insanely efficient, and I'm very productive on the targets I do receive. I get a high share of those targets, but because there are so many other receiving weapons, I can't get the raw production that I would get on any other team on your team. So that's, I think, what Aiyuk is saying. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you want to talk more about Brandon Aiyuk, it's been going on in the Patreon Discord today. You get my rankings, access to the Discord, and ability to ask in advance questions for these YouTube videos. Tiers begin at just $6 a month. I have Patreon video roster reviews available only for patrons. And I really appreciate everyone who signed up and any new patrons who joined. I'm not doing discussion on Twitter anymore. No, there won't be. There won't be any of that. It's in the Discord. There's been pages of discussion on Brandon Aiyuk today. So if you want to get in on that discussion, you have to join the Patreon. There's no other way. There will be no other way to do that. So I really hope that more people sign up. And I appreciate everyone who's been signed up and everyone who joins. Now, to get to a verdict, does Brandon Aiyuk get traded? Well, in the NFL, the answer is almost always no. It's hard. One of the worst things you can generally do in the NFL is to trade away a first-round pick for a non-quarterback and then give them a massive extension. It does work occasionally. You had the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill. You had the Eagles and A.J. Brown. The thing that I'm suspecting is that NFL teams don't quite consider Aiyuk on the same level as those players. And neither do I. I love Brandon Aiyuk. The rate stats say that he's a great player. Those two, though, are elite, above and beyond. Players that, if you're an opposing defensive coordinator, you're terrified of Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown. Is Brandon Aiyuk in that group? I'm going to say no. No, I don't put him in. I wouldn't put him in that group. No. So, but he's essential to the 49ers contending window. He's a very good player. He's their best wide receiver. This is the last year before they have to pay Brock Purdy. They need him. Additionally, Aiyuk is paid so little this year, so his contract's really valuable. It's really valuable. There's no way to replace him. And the 49ers have a potential franchise tag they could use in 2025, giving them even more leverage. There's no one else they would need to use that franchise tag on next year. They have CMC under contract. They have Kittle under contract. They have Debo under contract. Not maybe they'll move him, but they don't need to use franchise tag. Brock Purdy, rookie deal runs through 2025. So they don't need the franchise tag for him either. There's no chance that Brandon Aiyuk is moved, really. The 49ers got a deal done at the last minute with Debo Samuel and Nick Bosa, and I expect that they'll do the same here. Keeping Aiyuk and planning to move on from Samuel probably next offseason to clear out cap space. So what would you do? What would you do? What can you do in this situation? Well, I think there's a lot of different things you can do. First thing is, if there's a discount on Brandon Aiyuk, I would take it. If you can sell Ricky Pearsall for a first, I would do it. And otherwise, I think this is going to blow over and Brandon Aiyuk's going to get extended and we're not going to be talking about this in a month. So that's, I guess, my kind of takeaway on the Brandon Aiyuk situation. Now, I do have a few Patreon questions. One of them is actually about Brandon Aiyuk, coincidentally. So we'll read them. What's your outlook for Chase Brown this season? Is he a breakout candidate this year? I mean, last year he had 44 carries, 179 yards, and 14 catches for 156 yards and a touchdown. He didn't do much. The profile of Zach Moss is obviously not impressive. Journeyman who wasn't good for most of his career, but neither is Brown. I think the most likely outcome is that it's a messy committee. Neither running back does all that much, and the Bengals starting running back for 2025 is not on the roster right now. Next up, for redraft best ball leagues, who are some players that should be drafted higher than their sleeper ADP in best ball, and who are some players that should be drafted lower? Usually it's the big play wide receivers that are boom or bust that go higher. Your Gabe Davis, Jameson Williams, Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed. And the boring wide receivers, the ones who just kind of compile a few receptions a game, Jerry Jeudy, Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers, they usually go lower. because, you know, you don't have to guess when to start the big play wide receivers. You get their big points. And lastly, I thought this was fun. We got this trade done thanks to you. This trade was done based on things in the Patreon Discord. I suggest that you join. 12-team Superflex start 10, including 3 wide receivers, 0.25 running back reception bonus, 0.5 tight end premium. Acquired Brandon Aiyuk for DK Metcalf, Zach Moss, who we were talking about before, and 25 third. I don't really think my value of Aiyuk has changed with this news. I really don't think Aiyuk is traded. It's always had just a small chance of happening. That hasn't changed. So I'd lean towards the Aiyuk side here. Aiyuk is more of a sure thing to me than the Metcalf side, even with the trade rumors. I just have more confidence in Brandon Aiyuk being a fantasy asset. But honestly, this trade isn't bad. If we needed depth, I'd be fine going in the other direction. It's a very fair trade. Now, if you liked the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Dynasty, redraft, start sit, and more. Every sign up helps support my independent content. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.